Oh, yes, indeed. So much going on. I mean, today you hear about suspected bandits abduct 4 custom officers. Is it 2 now that has been released, or is it 2 in custody? And then the Southwest, they're going to launch this security concern. Don't worry, you can't see what's happening here in the studio. But yes, we're focusing on security, and we'll hope that we'll keep focusing and then have some good strategies unearthed and perhaps increase the security consciousness and education of Nigerians out there. But we're heading to Abuja now for Makwe to take us through that. Makwe.
Thank you, Chamberlain. We have with us this morning Mr. Terry. Well, let me just say Terry Okorododo, because he's a retired Air Vice Marshal. And I know how strongly military officials feel about being called Mr. But you're welcome to Sunrise Daily.
Thank you very much.
Apparently you don't mind.
I don't mind at all.
Oh, great. That's good to know. And Joshua Kabila, he's a retired DIG of police. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily as well.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you gentlemen here. We just wish we were talking about happier issues. Sadly, we're talking about insecurity. And a lot of Nigerians will still express concern and anxiety if they have to travel on Nigerian roads, for instance, or if they have to move from state to state. It is something to still worry about. Or do you think that the worry is misplaced, Mr. Habila?
You are right that there are a lot of fear and apprehension, particularly on our major roads. And it's true because oftentimes we've had incidences of people traveling and they are restrained because sometimes they are abducted and sometimes they are whisked away and that's being kidnapped. So it is right to say that there are some fears and apprehension on our roads.
And the apprehensions are justified, aren't they?
They can never be justified.
The anxiety that people feel cannot be justified?
The anxiety of the people of the fact that they could be kidnapped is justified.
Oh, that's what I was asking.
It's justified.
Yeah. The question is, we have received, several assurances that, work is being done. We see quite a number of operations being launched to reassure people. In some instances, we will see people being paraded. Towards the end of the year, there was a huge parade of people by the police in different states of the country. Here in Abuja, there was one done at the headquarters of the Nigeria Police Force. However, there's still questions as to whether these operations are sustainable and whether they are an ongoing concern, or do they just spring up as a response to the concerns of the people?
Well, most of these operations are planned, and you could see that I'm happy that you said a lot of people were paraded as having been caught or arrested. This is to show that the plans that are on ground and the effort of the security agencies as seen in the Nigerian police and other security agencies is paying off. And I can assure you that criminals everywhere have their own plans, and these plans are counteracted by the Nigerian police and other security agencies, and this has led to some improvement in this operation. If you look at it, you will see that a lot of these people that are caught red-handed or caught planning to commit crime have been paraded, and they have been paraded. And that means that some of the policies on ground is working. But this is not to say that we're there yet. There's more left to be done.
We'll come to the more in a moment. I want to ask you about being proactive, because some people will say that, it would seem that generally, as a country, we have not been proactive in nipping things in the bud. Sadly, we have let things get out of hand. That's why we have Boko Haram on our hands right now. It's an ongoing war. We do not know if it's going to be a war without end. From what we see going on in the northeast, first we will see that, some successes have been made. Yes, we're not where we used to be. However, when we look at the spate of attacks, of ongoing attacks, only recently we know that one of the commanders narrowly escaped an ambush, leaving Borno State, traveling on one of the roads in Borno State. There are questions to be asked as to where we are with our status in the fight against Boko Haram. But leaving that, which we'll come to that in a moment, I want you to speak to, you know, even our reactiveness. The fact that we are reacting to security challenges. Are we still, are we on top of the game as we ought to be?
To be honest, I will say not necessarily on top of the game, but we are heading in the right direction. Because if we say we're on top of the game, we'll be doing preemptive actions, preemptive operations. In other words, break them up before they initiate the attacks and other things like those. But what we lack currently are enough intelligence. Without intelligence, in other words, process information. If you don't have enough intelligence to know the players in the field on the side of the enemy, in this case the enemy is Boko Haram, or any other such groups, if you don't know what their plans are or their next intentions, you probably will not be able to disrupt what they are trying to do. Therefore, we react. So what we need to do is improve our intelligence gathering. And intelligence gathering or information that on these characters should not be left to the government alone. Yes, the intelligence services, the police, the military, and the clear-cut the Directorate of State Services and co, who's just so responsible, basically to secure the country internally. They need to be far more proactive. They need to improve the intelligence gathering through human intelligence and technical intelligence. These things are not sufficient. To get those kinds of assets cost a lot of money. Therefore, the Nigerian people must participate in the process. You cannot win a war if the people are not participating. Leave it to Muhammadu Buhari, who's the president, and he say leave it to his cabinet. It will not work.
Would you say, though, that we have put in place the mechanism to be able to get the people as involved as we would like them to be?
That probably not enough. Probably not enough, because it's on a minute by minute, day by day activity. Anybody who, for instance, you are in, I don't know where you're from, wherever you're from, and the people there do not look at the environment on a daily basis and say, somebody new has come into the city or the town, the village, somebody is suddenly into some money, right? Somebody into some money. You don't check where the money is coming from. Somebody is suddenly building a big house. You don't know where it's coming from. These are all part of the process. You cannot simply wait for the government alone to do these things. The problem, the people being killed on the roads and being abducted quite often are not government officials. You understand what I'm saying? It's not necessarily the people who are bearing the brunt of the fighting today in our country are the members of the armed forces. Right. What about the other Nigerians? They need to participate. So if you say, maybe because they don't like the government, or maybe because they are whatever, they're going to be aloof. Trust me, who's going to pay the price? We, the ordinary folks on the streets. Therefore, we must be proactive. We must get the people involved. The police must be responsive when citizens come to them to complain. Number one, you got to protect that citizen. You don't have somebody in the police or somebody else who's going to say, here was what this Mr. A come and told us about you. So this is how these things are going to be resolved.
I'm trying to, I think something came up recently which bordered on trust between the people and the security agencies which meant to protect them. And it would seem that, you know, all trust, I don't know, the last time you were here, it was one of the things you spoke about, you know, whether or not trust was beginning to improve between the police and the people. But I know that if we talk about the Northeast and talk about civilian population being involved, one of the things which the military might point to is the fact that there is civilian JTF, and this must be, an offshoot of the people trying to be very involved in the process, that they also got involved in in active security, so to speak.
Correct.
Are you worried though about the evolution of the civilian JTF, especially now that we understand that they bear arms?
For me, no. But the short answer is no.
Why?
Because I believe in the people's militia. I'm a member of the armed forces, yes. But, as we know, most societies of this world now cannot survive just depending on the armed forces alone and the police alone. The people. And that's why in America there's even the Constitution that the people must bear arms. They can act as a militia to protect the system. I do not see any big reason why we cannot use the people's militia, provided they are properly regulated. Everything in this world has got to be about regulation. You can say that with doctors, for instance. You go to medical school. What about the guys who are on the streets who are doing babalawo and doing all those kinds of things? The same kind of thing. What's more important in our world today is security. It's security. Yes.
If you cite the American example, though, there will be, you see the debate that is currently going on with the Second Amendment in the U.S. over, as a result of the school shootings that have been coming up. But
I just cited it only, but
let's quickly go to Lagos now and take some questions from my colleagues. Gentlemen.
Well, yeah, thanks, Michael. Ms. Okorodudu, you talked about how the people need to be involved. And in most parts of the world now, it's not just the men in uniform that do it all alone. They need the support of the people. But when you look at how the men in uniform relates with civilians, it appears as though it's us and them. So do you think that they really do have this mindset, and are they working towards ensuring that they get the people on the same page with them, seeing them as partners and not just, pardon my French, bloody civilians?
Well, several years ago, I was still serving, and I know we introduced the military, introduced the civil military departments, across the system. Defense headquarters, I think all the service headquarters have their civil military cooperation departments. I would say that the relationship has improved quite a lot. I won't say necessarily enough. We need to keep doing it. We need to have interactive sessions more often. I think today, what I can say clearly is that the relationship between the military and the civilian population is much improved, the ordinary civilian population. However, the people that need to interact more with regards to internal security, because that's really what we're talking about, are the police. The police needs to be far more friendly with the people, far more. In other words, the hierarchy is fine. The rank and file, of course, in the system, both in all the services, quite often need to be far more educated in the partnership between the civilian population and the uniform people. Because, like I said, without this civil population cooperating with intelligence services, it will be very, very, almost impossible to improve the security situation.
Mr. Abela, do you share the same view?
We need to.
Okay. Pardon me, I get your point, but let me ask Mr. Abela as well. Do you share the same view?
Yes, I'm on the same page with him. And that means that the civilian JTF in Borno are doing quite well, and they have been blended. But take note that they are not left alone. They are being supervised. And this is the kind of thing we're talking about on security in Nigeria, particularly the Nigerian police and other internal security agencies, that the issue of co-opting members of the public that will form what we call the community policing from bottom top. The infusion of these civilians into the operation of whether the military or the police will yield a lot of results. Because apart from the fact that they're being supervised, they're also being taught on some of the procedure and aspect of giving out intelligence. Because the intelligence, you need to be part of that community sometimes. You need to dig deep to be able to understand what those people are doing and what plans they have. Because once a soldier or a policeman walking into communities that you are new, they wouldn't open up. These people will hold back to what their plans are. But infusing members of the community will give you a good insight that would enable you get your intelligence and plan your operation. And that is exactly what we're talking about.
Let me bring this in. I mean, it's not new, but it's either those who are clamoring for it, it seems to be falling on deaf ears on the parts of those who should take the action, or they are not being properly channeled. I'm talking about this question about state police or decentralizing police. Now you have different regions who are coming up with their own security outfits, the latest being that of the Southwest. Mr. Bila, I mean, you were in the police force. Do you think that this should be the next level?
Yeah, yes, community policing is not a new concept. It is just the operational procedure. It is a platform that will not change the activities and the operational procedure of the police, but it's going to incorporate members of the public to be involved in decision-making, to be involved in whatever it is. A police officer posted to a place should be able to understand the people, their custom and their culture, and should also collaborate with them as to what exactly are their security challenges. And so security challenges differ from one community and one location to the other. And people who reside there would know very well what their security challenges are. And that for every crime committed, there's always someone that has a pre-knowledge or must have seen it all, but would not want to talk, because for police to stand on their own and not using members of the public to be part of, checkmating crime and criminality will not create that trust among them. And that's what we're trying to do, to bridge the gap, whether it is the military in the Northeast or the police all over the country. And that's why you're seeing a lot of arrests, a lot of people being picked, either before the crime is committed or after the crime must have been committed. So there's some success.
All right, Mr. Okorodudu, if I could ask you the same thing, do you think that we should just hit the nail on the head, rather than having different names of different regions, different security outfits? Just call it state police, and let's face it.
I probably will not go that far, because I think where we are is that, to be honest with you, state police, that is for me, a big issue. Big issue. Why is it a big issue? Because we haven't been able to regulate and practice politics within a civilized formula. Put it that way, I don't know. But if you give state governments police, you can imagine what they're going to do with the police. Right now, I'm talking about what I know. I think probably down the road, yes, state police, but right now, not. I certainly will not subscribe to it, because I know what the governors and these local government authorities will do with that police.
These concerns, why don't we debate it? Let's look at the advantages and disadvantages. Now, those who have their own fears, bring it on, and let them come, those who support it can come up with what they think can be done to counter it. So if it doesn't work, then we know where we are, rather than playing the ostrich and we just say, well, they won't use it right, whereas crime, criminality, some other things are already happening. Election comes once in 4 years, which they may or may not do something at that time. So shouldn't we approach it differently?
No, I'm not against debate. We can always debate, we can always talk. But the essence of society is to study. If we study, we know society. We ought to study. The think tanks are there to look at society and where the society is at any one time. Is society ready for one thing or the other, including, for instance, the right to bear arms by Nigerian citizens. We should know whether the society is ready or not ready. Many years ago, of course, like I said. However, state police is I think it's a bridge too far right now for the country, because the country is not, is what I said when I said the country, it's the component part of the country, meaning the states. And the politics of the country so far is not being run in accordance with ideological processes, unprincipled processes. We're still talking about politics of ethnicity, of personalities and things. The country's interest must be paramount at all times. If that is the case, if we put the interests of country and society itself first rather than personal, then I will subscribe to that. When we get to that point,
Mr. Okorodu, let's try to expand this conversation and bring in a former Assistant Director Internal Security at the SSS, Abu Adams. He joins us via Skype from Akure. So I'm sure you've been listening to this debate about state police, but let's talk about this regional security outfit, Amotekun, which is meant to take off today. But we see already that there are some issues and controversies surrounding it, some debate already. We're not talking state police, it's a regional security outfit, and there's some debate over it. So really, what is your take on this first?
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here this morning. This, do I call it fire brigade approach, is as a result of the fact that our conventional security systems failed to provide the necessary services, let me use the word, for the country. Of course, it's not their fault. It's the fault. It has always been the fault of leadership, and that is why we are, coming in for this system. Now, Amateku, or whatever it is called, is a bridge gap to at least see whether it can provide solution to the current challenges that we have, starting from the Southwest now as an example. And you will agree with me that most of our people believe in copycat. Very soon you will hear other regions of the country coming up with the same. I think under the circumstances that we find ourselves, I think it is a good thing, more so that Nigerians, their allegiance is more, in most cases, to their region, their tribe, their religion, and so on. So it is likely to have a very massive support, at least on the takeoff now. However, the success is dependent on other factors like adequate training for the operatives, adequate integration among the various security agencies and other units like OPC and whatever that are involved, and also the logistics. I'm sure we have also heard of the issue of welfare for even our own security operatives operating in the Northeast at one time or the other. I think that also should be taken care of while this operation is going on.
You spoke about ethnicity and religion, and I remember we were talking about people getting involved in the security architecture in the nation, but then you see that, like you said, people belong to different ethnicities, different religion, and these things come into play when it comes to security, whether we like it or not. So is this something we're factoring in enough when it comes to, designing strategies and policies when it comes to security in the country?
Thank you very much. I think the point I'm trying to make is that in countries where their security is intact, where their strategies are well implemented, the citizens are more as involved as government. But in our own country, because the spirit of nationalism, which was the basis of which was the in thing in those days by our political leaders, has long eroded. And right now, people really don't even believe in Nigeria as a nation, talk more of they are being committed to its cause. And that is why they are not involved. Of course, there are several factors, among which, in the report you read, there were cases, obvious cases, that up to now we have not heard of. We have not heard of the outcome of certain things that the Nigerians are waiting for to hear what governments and agencies are doing. This has really affected how people cooperate with security agencies, how they come out to give intelligence, information, how they contribute, even in providing logistics for security agencies and so on. It's a very big deal. It has broken down. Okay, during the report, one of the participants, I heard him talk about state police. You asked about state police. And he was saying that up to now, we are not matured to have state police. When are we going to be matured politically? How long are we going to wait? All these impact negatively on the security of the nation. Because if we are politically matured and we have our state police, where every state, look at the resources that the 6 southwestern states are going to commit. Sometimes you think about it, is it not enough for them to set up their own police force? The president of recent has given directive that they will be allowed to buy drones. Who are going to operate those drones? Is it the national security agencies that they don't have control over, or they will be allowed to involve private security consultants or intelligence consultants or equipment experts that are coming to handle it for them? So that is why we are saying all these put together impacts negatively on the security of this country.
Let's bring this back to Abuja. Mr. Habila, you would remember that recently, on New Year's Day, the president released a letter and he talked about the recruitment of more police officers. That's coming against the backdrop of that conversation that held where the president also, the military apparatus said that they're pulling the military out of some areas in order for the police to take over. This puts a question to my mind about police population ratio. Are we there, or should we be concerned?
I got that person. Well, I got an idea of what you're saying. At the last end of it, I didn't get it rightly, but you're asking about the plans by the military to withdraw in some places and allow police to take charge. Of course, as I speak, the military in the Northeast, work together with the Nigerian police, the police mobile force. I remember while I was holding on to the operation of the Nigerian police in this country, I know that a unit of a police mobile force is 63. And I also know that there were 6,000 policemen that were posted and were deployed to Northeast. There are some of them that work directly in the front line to some extent with the military. There are still a lot of them out there. And so if there are other issues that will take the military away, I think that the police, given the necessary equipment, will be able to hold on to some of the grounds that have been won and ensure that security is restored. But I can tell you also that it is possible that the military would want the police to take over some of the places that have already been cleared. And that gave the reason why the number of the policemen in this country should be increased. I know the last time and the last count that I know while I was there was about 380,000 policemen. And if you look at them for about 200 million citizens, you will know that we need to beef them up, to be able to pause them, to be able to create presence through activities that will keep off some of these criminals. And so I think it's the right direction for the army to think of giving out some of the places that have been cleared for the police to carry out some activities.
Now, you have also broached, the fact that, okay, so there is that difference. What should be the standard what should be the standard of police population ratio? What should be the standard in Nigeria?
Well, even if you give in one police to to 40 or 400 men, you still need some other equipments like the intelligence platform, some of the equipments that will help in advancing intelligence-led policing, and some of the things that, some equipments that will help. The few that the police have, you could see, we said it here, that that has led to getting a lot of people that have committed crime, either kidnapping and armed robbery and what have you, and have taken to flight. I've been caught, even with their equipment, with their guns and what have you. And so if you also give out some equipment for the police, you're going to see a lot of improvement. And so, and you know, the policing or combating crime does not give you some data of what achievement, because it requires a lot of money, and the resultant effect of it is not seen well, because unless you follow what the security personnel are doing, you may not be able to appreciate them. And so it's very expensive. But the government also is living to its worth, because recently the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria have said that he's going to ensure that the police is well equipped. So we need a lot of equipment, and when we have this equipment, there are intelligence platform that you can get a lot of information and intelligence before you go to execute them, rather than just getting out without this intelligence. And so I think government is aware, and government should also be very fast about trying to do something. But you know that government alone cannot do that. And that's why we're saying that members of the public and organizations should be able to also support the government through some funding so that we can get it right.
So, gentlemen, I want to quickly, as we wrap up now, I would like you to quickly give your comments. If you were to see, say, the Commander-in-Chief face to face, what would you be saying to him? And what would you also be saying to the Nigerian people, considering the anxiety and the concern that a lot of people feel about the security situation in the country?
Well, I think the most important thing for the Mr. President is to bring the Nigerian people together. That's really the most important task. The president ought to be the chief unifier as well as the chief security officer of the country, commander-in-chief. What I would say very clearly right now is that there are too many disparate and contending issues in our country. Therefore, it is essential that policies that will bring the people, the Nigerian people, together from across Northwest, East, and South, to ensure that the Nigerian people feel that they have a direct stake in the affairs of the country, and therefore they will be committed, and the Nigerians should identify themselves as Nigerians first and foremost, rather than so-called East-West, Northern, Southern. We have this Northern Governors Forum and all kinds of things. We shouldn't be having things like Northern Governors Forum, in my view. We should have a Governors Forum. We should have a Nigerian people's agenda constantly, irrespective of religion, irrespective of tribes, ethnic groups. That is the bane of Nigerian society as we speak. Nigerians must recognize themselves as Nigerians first, and therefore they cannot defend Nigeria. They cannot defend Nigeria. If Nigerians don't defend Nigeria, nobody else will. The president alone cannot do so. He has to bring people, he has to ensure that the people who anybody that don't function as a Nigerian, to defend Nigeria's interests all of the time, should not be in the Nigerian government.
That's definitely one to take away. Let me quickly go to our guest in Akure, Mr. Abu Adams, former Assistant Director of Internal Security at the DSS. You have expressed concern about the lack of maturity or thereof. I don't know if you agree or you disagree with the fact that we're mature enough to have state police. But what would you be recommending, given what you know about internal security operations of the security agencies in Nigeria?
Thank you very much. I think let me start from the existing police force and security agencies in the country. I want to call upon the government. And I want to give you one small scenario. If you look at the IG response team led by Abakari, that team is so effective for several factors. Properly trained, well motivated, adequate equipment. But let me ask this question. Why can't we have the Abakiaris in all the area commands of this country? How much does those equipment cost? What does it cost to train? We need this capacity building and adequate equipment across all the areas that operations are domiciled, and that is at area command level or zonal level. This will help the various security agencies to operate well. They don't have the necessary equipment that can build their confidence. I need government to look at this very seriously. And the idea of political maturity of Nigerians, how long are we continuing to wait? I think, in my opinion, we should start something and let the citizenry also be committed to moving our leaders to do the right thing. I think when we do this, you will see that we cannot be waiting endlessly until other people are gone. I believe that we have the capacity, we have the men. If those in service presently are well motivated, those that are coming will be interested, and they will give in their best for this country. And we should also be, our plan should be very strategic. Look at when we decimated Boko Haram. I told people then in several fora I discussed that it might be an arrangement for them to start new things. Thereafter, they began to kidnap, and they spread themselves across the country where kidnapping has become something else. I think we need to do more of our planning better than what we are doing now.
Well, we have to thank you very generously for joining us this morning via Skype. Mr. Abu Adams is a former Assistant Director, Internal Security at the SSS. Let me quickly take your closing comments, Mr. Joshua Kabila. You have heard him talk about Abakiari's team, and
yes,
he's wondering what it would take to have one of such in each geopolitical zone of this country. Do you want to quickly speak to that as you wrap up?
Yes, Abakari is a Deputy Commissioner of Police sitting out there at the helm of affairs of the intelligence response team. This intelligence response team is intelligence-led operation and policing that has some intelligence equipment that assist them in getting real-time operation and real target operation.
What he's saying is, can't we have more of that?
We have a few of them. It's expensive, and that's why we're saying that Mr. President should quickly approve the police trust fund so that we can have sufficient money to replicate most of this. Once you do that, I can assure you that there's going to be a lot of improvement in the internal operation of the Nigerian police and other security agencies. It's expensive. Very, very expensive.
But you're confident that the police can still meet our security needs?
The police can always do that. You know, people don't understand. And that's why members of the public should be interested in what the police are doing. And that's why we're talking about community policing. Community policing is completely bringing in the community together in decision-making, in decision implementation. And there will be this trust. It is not I alone, the police. It must be with some sector of the people in that community. They will be neck deep, and every operation, they will be part of it.
Well, gentlemen, we have to thank you for coming on Sunrise Daily this morning. Terry Okorodudu is a retired Air Vice Marshal, and Mr. Joshua Kabila is a retired Deputy Inspector General of Police. Thank you again for coming on Sunrise Daily.